There's literally nothing more valuable than a good, sharp scraper when it comes time to tillering your bow. I'm going to take the next few minutes and show you how to take this piece of spring steel and turn it into something that really does a phenomenal job of removing wood in a very strategic manner on the bellies of your bows. Probably the most valuable tillering tool that you can have in your arsenal when it comes time to making bows. All right, here are the tools that we are going to need in order to redress our card scraper here. I have a sharpening stone, a little bit of oil, a burnishing tool here, a file, and if you want, a couple of very fine wet-dry abrasives so that we can polish up that steel. I've been using this all winter long. It's now spring. It's time to redress this this scraper. Lots of little divots and pits and issues with the edge on that guy. Kind of in need of a redress. Our first objective is to get the existing burr removed and to polish up these edges as best we can. So we're going to start with gross removal. We're just going to take our file and remove the burr that is in place currently. And we want to, as much as we can, keep all of our address every tool exactly perpendicular to whatever edge we've got going on. Now that we've taken down the flat edges of our burr, we're now left with the remnants of the actual edge of our card scraper. And so from here, we do everything we can to ensure that as we're moving our file across this edge of the scraper, we've got it perfectly perpendicular to the tool itself. All right, so the idea here is to get a perfectly flat edge across here. The file is going to leave tool marks, just like it does in a bow. It is vitally important, guys, that when addressing your card scraper with any tool, that you do not want to be grinding on this thing. We are not trying to remove material. What we're trying to do is raise a squared, polished edge. All right, so very light addressing of the file against the scraper here, so that we can get as smooth an edge as possible with a file before we move on to the sharpening stone. And now we're using a sharpening stone only to the degree that we want to really polish down this extreme edge of our card scraper, and then we're also going to polish off this edge, and we'll address it across the scraper here, kind of on a diagonal, so that we don't rut it out any. This is actually a pretty small scraper. One of the alternatives is to use like a 400 and then a 600 grit paper, right? And use the paper to raise an edge on it. The bottom line being that we are getting any of our tool marks removed from the steel. That's it. That's all we want to do. How we get there is almost beside the point, so long as we do it. Okay, at this point, you guys, we have our card scraper or cabinet scraper polished to the best of our ability along just the leading edge on here on each side, and then right on its edge here. All right, as best as we can manage. a perpendicular 90-degree edge across this tool. So from here, we start the burnishing process. We're going to use just a very little bit of honing oil to aid in moving our burnisher along here. And when you're addressing your burnisher across this tool, there should be no noticeable drag or hang up going on. And what we're doing here is just truing up our flat edge. Next stage being that, and for me, I like to do that, or do it in a vise here. It becomes a little problematic when you get to the other side here. So once we get this all dressed and then it has to sit in the bottom of the vise, you really need to be very careful about how you're handling your scraper at that point. So now that we have gotten everything consolidated to a nice 90-degree edge, we're going to come back across with our burnisher and just work straight down perpendicular on this edge, just like this. Now, we're going to keep the strokes really pretty light to start, and then we're going to kind of pick up a little bit of pressure as we move along. From there, we will start addressing the tool at just the slightest angle here. Just the slightest angle. And what this is going to do is put that hook in place. And you can kind of feel it as you start going along here, that hook is starting to develop. You can see that I'm trying to address the tool such that we don't rut it out or put a divot into the shaft of this tool and ruin it. So the idea here is to work its length without a lot of pressure. I mean, I'm applying some, and the pressure is actually kind of increasing as I go along. So each stroke is just a smidge more pressure than the last. And when you come back across this and you feel it with your finger, you can feel the burr starting to raise on here. All right. And just ever so slightly, you can feel an edge. And it will take your fingernail off very quickly, just like this. I'm going to step away for a quick sec and grab an old failed bow here. Just kind of give you an impression of what you can expect. All right, so there's what we're talking about. And that's just right off the top here. Okay, so not a whole lot of effort involved here. And of course, the more you work with it on a piece of wood, you're going to get a little wider pieces of ribbon. But this is what you can expect from a sharp scraper. You can see how this is just coming right off, and it's all right here on the workbench. Right. This adds up in a very big hurry, especially when you're running from fade to tip. And you just end up with a real nice bird's nest of wood. And you can very accurately and strategically remove wood from your project, your bow, belly, the belly or the back or whatever it is you're doing, and get phenomenal results from this little piece of steel. So thanks for joining me this week. Quick video, kind of short, but hopefully it's of value, because this is one of those tools that you do not want to be without. All right, so one of these in-between videos, since I haven't got a bow in the works at the moment, talk about this, and then we'll get started on some bows here real quick.